most people never even start because they're scared. What are people going to
Mhm.
say? What are they going to make fun of me? Who cares what anybody says? You don't, I love the great quote from the great Zig Ziglar, I believe it was, right? You don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Daniel Gomez is an award-winning motivational keynote speaker, business coach, corporate trainer, executive coach, and Podcast of the Year recipient. Daniel speaks and coaches at events all over the world. Daniel has over 2 decades of experience in the arena of leadership development and team building, sales training, customer service, and coaching. He is the international best-selling author of You Were Born to Fly, a book written to inspire and give people the high-performance habits and confidence needed to be the leaders of their own destiny. Daniel's high energy and ability to unlock the untapped potential in people have made him a highly sought-out trainer for top organizations, including the U.S. Air Force, to develop their officers. He gives organizations the success principles, leadership skills, and champions mindset to develop and build a winning team. So Daniel, welcome to the show.
Candy, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be here with you today. And I'll tell you, I ate some extra Wheaties today to make sure I gave all the energy and all the effort because, right, we are talking about speaking. And one thing that most speakers do is they mess up and they just talk like a robot and wonder why people get disengaged. And I call it death by PowerPoint.
That's so true. I actually had a teacher in college I had to take twice because I was in a special program and he talked in a monotone and it was already a topic I wasn't that interested in. And then I had to hear him every, class talking in monotone for 2 different semesters. It was not easy. So yes, we need to have some type of enthusiasm. And you would think if he was excited about his topic, he would have enthusiasm too, but nope.
Yes, no, I'll tell you what, I've been a professional speaker 7 years now, and true story. I'm going to be totally transparent because I think the illusion that a lot of aspiring speakers have is they want to come in and they want to be on the biggest stages, but they don't realize it takes preparation, ladies and gentlemen. It takes preparations to go from an unpaid speaker to a paid speaker. It takes preparation to learn to master your stories. And like you see behind me, that sign says Sticker Shock Speaking Academy. At our Speaking Academy, we really take you from A to B, right? From unpaid to paid, from speaking one-to-one to one-to-many. And really, we take you from no story to mastering, not just one story, but you got to have different stories for different audiences. So when you come and attend Sticker Shock Speaking Academy, the huge shift is that most speakers fail because they just want to be a speaker, Candy. And we show them how to build a speaking business when they come to Sticker Shock. So it's not just speak to speak. Well, you got to have a purpose behind your speaking, right? What type of business are you going to have? Right? How are you as a business? And so many speakers just don't understand that you have to think bigger than just speaking. There has to be a speaking business aspect behind it.
Well, we're definitely going to talk about that today and help entrepreneurs really understand what they should be doing if they want to start, obviously, to become a speaker, or maybe they already are a speaker, but they're not having as much success as they would like. So I know you're going to be sharing some insights with us today too. So I appreciate that.
Yes. And going back to what I was going to say is that I looked at a video with a friend of mine and it was from like 2017 or 2018. And he goes, "That was you?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Daniel." I said, "What?" He goes, "I wouldn't have hired you." I said, "Man, I wouldn't have hired myself." But we can reflect back on those moments of when we started. And it's not that I was a bad speaker, but you don't know what you don't know. So to your audience out there, be kind to yourself and understand that it's going to take practice to get from A to B and to become that speaker. And I laugh at that video now, but it's good to reflect back and see how far God's brought me.
It's the same thing like starting podcasting too. If I go back and look at the very first ones, I probably would cringe. I was so nervous. I didn't even think I would ever be a podcaster, right? So I've done it now for 5 years, so I'm more comfortable with it too. So I'm sure, anytime we look at something of where we were in the past, we probably are like, ooh, that wasn't so great. But we've learned along the way, and we still were able to help people even back then, right? So maybe we weren't as successful, but we still did make an impact.
Yeah, and the thing is this is most like you that in reference to what you just said in podcasting, you started 5 years ago, whether it's podcasting or in this episode speaking. Most people never even start because they're scared. What are people going to say? What are they going to make fun of me? Who cares what anybody says? You don't. I love the great quote from the great Zig Ziglar, I believe it was, right? You don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. And because of speaking, Candy, we've built $1 million business here at Daniel Gomez Enterprises, right? I started as a speaker. Then once you start getting one of the speaker, the first one of my first coaches said, well, now you need a book, Daniel. So I did my first book, You Were Born to Fly. And then all this advice started coming to me about what to do with the book. And then people started asking me for advice. And then I said, I'm never going to write another book. True story. So I'm never going to write another book. I'm in the process of writing my 5th book now.
Oh, wow.
And the brain changer. But the truth is this, is that as I was going on my journey, I realized like, wow, it evolves, right? And I think so many speakers, they want to start here, but you have to evolve as a human being. And now, because of speaking, now we do book publishing, now we do podcast launching, now we have our own events like Sticker Shock Speaking Academy. So I think you really got to be patient with yourself and be kind to yourself if you're that aspiring speaker. And going back to what Candy said, ladies and gentlemen, write this down. Get out your pen and paper and write this down. This is a must. You must put in the reps. Listen to what Candy said. 5 years. She's put in the reps for 5 years to get to your level of podcasting right now. Well, you're gonna have to put in your reps as a speaker to get right. I'm gonna speak on stage here next month with America's Coach, Michael Burt. I'll be there with Tim Story. He's a life coach to the celebrities. So I'll be sharing the stage with some celebrity speakers, but it's because I've built up my speaking credibility to that level. I've shared the stage with Les Brown, John Maxwell, and I don't say that in a bragging way, but I want you to understand that if I can do it because I put in the reps, so can you. Just put in the reps.
So if someone's listening and saying, okay, well, I understand the concept, it's going to take practice. I'm so new. I don't really have a lot of experience. Like, what would you say to them about how to even get started? Where should they start looking for speaking opportunities if, they're not well known yet? They don't have a lot of practice. Like, how can they really find those opportunities?
Well, this is my recommendation. If you're an aspiring speaker and you're doing business or you're doing something where you want to grow as a speaker, I would highly recommend this. And I would have done it this way if I would have known, or someone would have coached me on that. I would definitely do your book first. And the reason why is because one thing that I realized is a book is another form of revenue, Candy. So what I would have done and what I tell our clients to do is we got to get your book going. And if you don't have the capacity to do a book, well, then get yourself in an anthology, right? This is our new anthology called The Brain Changer, and it's Daniel Gomez and co-authors. So I share that with you because instantly you got credibility, especially in an anthology. Our branding, the makings of a millionaire mind, it's known worldwide now. So now they're associated with a bigger brand than themselves. So A, you start branding yourself to the next level, and then B, you take your book. Now you got a product to sell for $25 an autographed copy. So you go speak at your Rotary clubs, you go speak at networking events, and you just volunteer because you got to get the reps in. But the thing is this, what I love about speaking, ladies and gentlemen, is people hear your heart. And we'll just say, Candy, that you have 100 people at a networking event or at a Rotary club, and it's a free gig. Hey, no problem. But think about this. 30%, around 33% of that audience is going to connect with you at a deeper level. So that means 33% of those people out of 100 are going to say, you know what? I like what Daniel said. I like what Candy said. Let me buy their book. I want to support them. I want to know more about them. So now you would just say 30 times 25. you just produced like $600 worth of revenue for yourself, and it was a free gig. But not only that, guess what? Now they got your book. Now, guess what? Your name's on the book. Now you're in their subconscious mind, right? Because it goes back to that old wisdom that we all know: out of sight, what, Candy? Out of mind, right? So as you start making your tours, going speaking at networking events, speaking at Rotary clubs, and volunteering your speaking to get your reps in, then those paid gigs will get going. So I want you to imagine this, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine there's a dartboard right here behind you. You got your bullseye, you got your outer circle, then you got your outer circle, and then you got your outer circle. Well, the very outer circle of speaking is free. We all start there, right? I started there. And then as you go in, you hit that first $1,000. And most people have a trouble even asking for $1,000, Candy, believe it or not. They don't see the value in themselves. When God told me to do this one thing, I didn't want to do it. I was scared. I said, no one's going to hire me. Now it was time to go from 1,000 to 2,500. And I was freaking out. I was like, what? Like no one's going to hire me. What are you talking about, God? Like the download came to me in prayer. Do you realize that my speaking engagements went up in bookings because I raised my price to 2,500? It went up because this is what I need your audience to see, and entrepreneurs. And this is true for speaking, and this is true for any product or service you may offer. There's a perceived value to a certain industry, and if you price yourself too low, then you're going to price yourself out of the market. And I'm going to give you a great example, Candy. What do I mean? Candy, let's just do some role playing. Candy, guess what? I love so much being on your podcast. You're going to come with me to Miami Beach. We're going to have an amazing time on Sunset Drive. By the way, I found a special online. I got our hotels booked. Guess what, Candy? Our book on Ocean Drive right there in Miami Beach. I got it for $37. Aren't you excited?
Right. Probably not. I would be worried
Why?
what it would look like.
Because there's a perceived value, right?
Right.
Right? You're like, okay, $37 for a hotel room at Ocean Drive in Miami. What Roach Motel is this? Isn't that the first thing you think about?
Yep, something's wrong.
Right? Yeah. So there's a perceived value that if I'm going to go to Miami and I'm going to stay on Ocean Drive, I'm going to be paying at least anywhere from $250 to maybe $500. I mean, we all have a different capacity, but that's a good range to talk about. But if you're way below that, I ain't going to stay there. So if you price yourself at $500 or $1,000 as a speaker, I'm not going to hire that guy or girl. They must be new. And usually they overlook you. Well, then I went from the 2,500, the big one, right? I went to 3,500 and then 5,000. And now I've been paid $10,000 to speak, right? And that's, I think as when you go into these organizations and corporations, that's a good, right? When you get to that $10,000 mark, you've made it, right? Even at 5,000, you've made it. Because now you speak for 5,000. Now Daniel has 2 books. So instead of saying, guess what? You get 1 book for 25, you get another book for 25. Candy, buy 2 books and you get 2 for 40. You just saved them $10. And Americans love a sale. Americans love everything to be on special. Right. So it's a lot better to look at your transactions on your Square app, right? 25 times 10 is good, but 25 times 10 times 40 is even better. So why make $250 when you can make an additional $400 to $500 in revenue? And that's my wisdom on that for you, Candy, and your audience.
Perfect. Well, obviously being a keynote speaker, that requires like really understanding the audience that you're going to be presenting to. So how does someone tailor their message? So maybe they've got it created now and they're going to talk to, maybe a Rotary group here and a business group, there. And, maybe there's a specialty, industry meeting or something that they could talk to. So how do they tailor their message to really resonate with each of those different audiences?
So the wisdom is this: what got me out of 2020, we grew in 2020, we grew in 2021, we doubled in 2022, and we've continued to grow because of this. The mistake that a lot of speakers and coaches made in 2020 is they were too niche down. You can niche yourself out of business. You can niche, and that's NICHE. You can niche yourself to where you go broke. And in 2020, when the world collapsed and when the whole world shut down, many speakers were so niched down, and maybe it was a high speaking engagement, but now they didn't need that speaking. So now they lost it. What helped Daniel is I didn't have just one message. I didn't have two messages. So when you and your audience come to Sticker Shock Speaking Academy, we show you got to have 2 or 3 strong messages that can be spoken over different industries. What do I mean by that? Well, when 2020 happened, guess what? There was still high school graduations going on here in Texas. So I wouldn't spoke at high schools. High schools pay you $3,000. High schools pay you $5,000. But the thing is this, it's not always the money you get up front, right? Even though I wanted 5,000, 7,000, I was still getting, I want you to think about the wisdom behind this, ladies and gentlemen. If I go speak in Austin or I go speak in Dallas and they pay you 5,000, 7,000 easily, I got to go and stay the night in Dallas. My time is more valuable now. So in my thinking, I'm staying here in San Antonio. I get to sleep in my own bed. They're going to pay me $3,500. They're going to let me sell my books. So guess what? I'm winning because my time is valuable also. So I look at the time cost effectiveness of that. And then not only that, I get footage of me on stage. I get to make more social media content. So even though you get to those higher prices, I'm not saying I'm too prideful that I'm not going to take a lower paid speaking engagement because it's in my city. I'll do that all day long if it's the right fit for me, because I know that, hey, that speaking engagement is going to lead to another speaking engagement. And then I might even meet one of my ideal clients when it comes to coaching. It happens all the time.
Right. But I guess my question would be like catering it to that specific audience though too. So like I understand we were talking about like the different opportunities that present to you as a speaker and how you decide which ones you want to do. But once you've accepted an offer and you're going to talk to a small group of business owners, and then maybe you're talking to a group at a company event even on the same topic, like how do you make sure that your message matches what they need?
Well, that's easy. So going back to COVID, right? A lot of event planners and a lot of businesses got burned. So let me give you an example. The standard industry is that whenever Candy books Daniel, ladies and gentlemen, just to come speak at her event, we'll just say my speaking honorarium is 5,000. Well, you get half of it up front. I mean, that's just industry standards. They give you a deposit up front, half of it down. Well, what happened in 2019 and 2020 as COVID happened, a lot of these people, like, they lost their deposits. And then in 2020, as the world was opening back up in 2021, now they're interviewing you more, right? Before it was like, hey, I'll talk to you on the phone. I love Daniel's energy. But now a lot of these event planners, a lot of these organizations, a lot of these businesses, they want to do a Zoom now. So, and it's for me too, because not every event's going to be perfect for you. So I asked them, hey, Candy, let me ask you this. I know you're having your podcasting event here coming up in January. What are two takeaways you want your audience to take away from me speaking, or from your conference, from your training? And they tell you. So I just formulate my speaking to that. Right. All right. Well, let me give you an example. I speak a lot on the makings of a millionaire mind. And our director of operations, he came up with a great idea. Let's start doing this in real estate. So what we did is we called it the makings of a millionaire mind in real estate. And guess what? It was a phenomenal hit. But then again, we also do the makings of a millionaire mind for entrepreneurs. So we tailor a message for whatever audience we're going to speak in front of. So it's not that you have to have 100 different messages for every audience. You take your core messaging and then you speak to that event. But I love talking to the event planners and to whether it's human resources who brings me in or the CEO, like, what are 2 or 3 takeaways you want to take away from this? And it's easy. You just tailor what you're going to speak about, put in a couple of the bullet points, and then they know that you heard what they wanted. And I'll tell you what, they appreciate it because you took the time to ask, what do you want? And a lot of speakers make this mistake. Many speakers think that they're the star of the show when they're not. It's actually the audience that's the star of the show.
Good point. Right. We want to make sure that we're giving them what they need. Right. And yes, we want them to enjoy what we're doing. But the point is to give them whatever those tips and tricks are, to help them make a difference in, their personal or business lives.
Yes. But so going back to what I was saying is when you come to Sticker Shock Speaking Academy, we really show you how to get at least 2 messages down. And like for me, when I first came out and I really hit it big training the United States Air Force, that was my big break to fame. I spoke on leadership. I spoke on team building. They're kind of one and the same, but then I also spoke on communication. So every industry, right? Every organization needs better leadership. Every industry needs better communication. So you just tailor it to that industry. And that's what really helped me evolve as a speaker. And then as I grew, was then I started speaking about the millionaire mind, started speaking about business. Now I speak about speaking, right? So all these different opportunities. So really, I can speak on 10 different subjects easily. And the biggest mistake that like I hear this, and this is people got to stop listening to a lot of the BS they hear and see on social media, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, especially Instagram. It's like they ask this question, well, what can you speak on in if you're put on the spot for 30 minutes? If you can't speak on five different subjects in 30 minutes, then you're not a professional speaker. I'm sorry.
Right. So I know sometimes people will ask you, because you're saying have these different topics available to, right? Have multiple speeches. But sometimes people are just saying, well, what is your keynote, topic title? And they're asking for one, so how do you know for that particular audience, maybe which one would be ideal to present to them as what you want to speak on?
It goes back to interviewing them, right? They're interviewing you, but when you take time to say, well, what's the takeaway you want? And I listen to what they say. I said, it sounds like you want more of a sales presentation. So let me do this sales accelerator presentation. Okay, great. It sounds like you want more of a business speech, right? So let's talk about more, right? The makings of a millionaire mind in business. So you listen to what they say. And I think so many times, so many speakers, they don't practice active listening. And they start to throw up right away on the interview, right? Oh, I can speak on this, I can speak on that. And then they had the gig because the event planner liked their speaking reel, but they threw up all this information. And then I've seen it where they go like, yeah, that doesn't go in alignment with the messaging. So thank you. We'll give it to you next year. So I think it's very wise. It's kind of like a job interview, right? A career interview. They're interviewing you, you interview them. And then I even ask them this at times. Let me ask you this, Candy. What did you like about the speaker that you brought into your last event, your last conference? Okay, what did you not like? Okay, great. So it helps me to formulate before I even respond, right? Because I've learned this wisdom is never be the first one to speak. Hear what they have to say, and that way you take the wisdom that they give you and you're able to articulate back in your response of what you're going to tell them of what you can do for them as a speaker.
Well, that's a great tip as well, too, because again, sometimes it's hard and maybe we don't even always have the chance to have that conversation either. Sometimes it's like fill out this application and put your details. But if you can have a conversation to learn about their audience and what their goals are for that particular event, then that's obviously helpful to determine which of the presentations would be ideal. Also, if they have multiple speakers too, making sure you have something different than what is already being presented. But I know that's a helpful tip. So thanks for sharing that. But I wanted to ask you too, as the recipient of, the Podcast of the Year award, which congratulations on that. That's awesome. How do you kind of merge those two different types of presentations, right? A lot of times, like we're doing now, this is more interviewing versus keynote speaking. But again, it is presenting information. So how do you merge those two together?
Well, it's totally a different style, different technique. And what I mean by that is, a lot of speakers that started during the COVID era in 2020, 2021, I've seen them struggle when they get on stage. Totally different, right? The preparation is different, the approach is different. And I've seen them struggle huge because, right, this is like, right, I can use my hands, it's easy. But then when you get on stage, it's a different preparation because it's more in it. Not that this is an intimate, but really there you have the power of the human touch. And when you have the power of the human touch, it's amazing right there. So this is what I would say is that the preparation is when you prepare for something that's on video, it's, how can I say this? It's I think it's more really getting them involved initially. The virtual events that I've spoken on is you got to use the chat, right? Like right now I'm seeing the software that we're using. Use the chat. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, give me a 1 in the chat if you like what I'm saying. Or hey, ladies and gentlemen, if it was what I'm saying resonates with you, put a 2 in there. So you can still engage the audience when you're speaking virtually, but you got to learn how to master those techniques. So because it's a different approach, it's a different way of speaking, And you got to be able to evolve as a speaker in doing that. And then when you come out on podcasts, I mean, if I was just here, right, I would say this on podcasting: 93% of communication is body language and tonality. Only 7% are words. So if I'm here just like this, and right, nobody's gonna want to hear me or watch me, but I'm using energy. I'm raising my voice. I'm pausing. I'm just using voice inflection. So that's key, especially when you're in front of the, say, a podcast interview or a virtual event that you're speaking at.
So if someone has not really ever put a keynote together and wants to put down a presentation, and needs to think through all of the items that should be involved, like, what do you say those key elements really should be in terms of what they're going to present? Like, obviously, when you're presenting, like you just talked about, having, a change of inflection in your voice and maybe, having some movement or things. But in terms of the actual points within that keynote speech, what do you recommend using in there?
Well, you got to come to Sticker Shock Speaking Academy in San Antonio. Because that way you see it live, you see it in person, and you see other people create their keynote speech. And I'll tell you what, Tony Potter came to one Sticker Shock. From one September to the other September, he made over $80,000 at speaking on leadership, and he honed down his keynote. So this is a thing, and I don't care who you are as a speaker. You got to believe it for yourself. I think seeing hundreds of speakers come to our speaking academies, we're almost hitting thousands. It's that many people come to Sticker Shock and they don't, right? Imposter syndrome sets in. And going back to and the reason I say that is because your keynote speech is you speaking from your heart. So what you want to do is you want to have a formulation of, right? You want to start up with an intriguing entrance. You want to have a story that's going to hook them in the beginning, and then you throw in facts, and then you throw in another story, and then you throw in a teaching point, and then you end with the story where it brings them in. That way they could feel the last thing they feel from you is really your heart in that. And I think the biggest mistake that I've seen on a lot of keynotes is they give you fact, and that's not a keynote. That's just a presentation. But a keynote is taking them on a roller coaster journey of emotion. And then as you practice to pause, you lure them into the edge of their seat. And then at the end of the speech, you have them in tears. I think that, to me, is a great keynote. Because you got to have a personal story behind it that's going to anchor your presentation.
That's a great point too. So like I said too, because a lot of times when we're doing presentations, it is like factual information. But like I said, if you really want to have a keynote, there's got to be some emotion there, or to motivate people to do something, right? You don't want to necessarily just have, here's ABC and then thank you very much, right? But that takes time, like I said, and it takes practice, right? To really be able to get good at doing all of that and being comfortable. Because like you said, imposter syndrome can, especially if they're just starting out, they could be nervous, stage fright type thing, but they want to get up there and start presenting. And like I said, having more practice and getting comfortable with it obviously will help with that too.
Yeah, I mean, it takes reps. I mean, I think if your audience takes anything, you have to start where you're at. You got to not be scared. Volunteer at Rotary clubs, volunteer at networking events, start applying to these opportunities, come to a speaking event. And I'm saying Sticker Shock because that's our International Speaking Academy. We've helped hundreds of speakers go from unpaid to paid. Like, we have proven results. Michelle Hoskins right now, she just did a tour with the small business, with the SBA. She was in Philadelphia. She was in New York. And she's made over she's made over $250,000 speaking since coming to Sticker Shock. But the truth is she was ready to receive it. And if you're not ready to receive it, imposter syndrome sets in. You don't do anything with what you learn. And then the thing is that you just wait for that perfect moment, and that perfect moment never comes, instead of just taking action. Because what I've realized is that the certainty sometimes comes as you continue moving forward. Even with the smallest step, it's still a step forward, Candy, where it can be just the next level of an opportunity there. Because I've spoken many times. I've spoken many times where I speak, and then it leads to another engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know who you're going to meet at these speaking opportunities.
Right. Exactly. Well, this has been an informative discussion, but I know we're coming close to the end of the time we have together. So I would love to ask you if you have an offer that you would like to share, and how can listeners connect with you?
Well, yeah, I got two offers, right? So first thing I want to do is text the word millionaire. That's the word millionaire by itself, lowercase, no, nothing, to the number 210-942-5059. That's 210-942-5059. And we're going to give you a millionaire PDF affirmation to really develop that mental fortitude you need as a speaker. And the second thing I want to do, I'm going to give out my personal email. I wasn't going to do this, but I want to do this right now. Daniel@DanielGomezSpeaker.com. That's Daniel@DanielGomezSpeaker.com. Put in this amazing podcast with Candy. Just put in Candy, and I'm going to give you a complimentary 45-minute speaker session to walk you and guide you in anything that I can do. That's my gift to you. Complimentary speaker discovery call. Just put the word Candy speaker in the subject line and on the email, and I'm going to give you that time at no additional cost.
Thanks.
I'll do that for your audience,
Thank
Candy.
you. Perfect. And any other way, like, do you want them to reach out to you on social media or anything either, or just send that email?
Yeah, well, actually, they would. I mean, we're on all social media handles. My speaking brand is Daniel Gomez Inspires, and Daniel Gomez Inspires. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn. Actually, we're all even on Pinterest. So, but our speaking brand is Daniel Gomez Inspires. Reach out to us, connect us, and we love for you to follow us and just really get engaged with us, because I love what I do, and it breaks my heart when there's a lot of speakers that have a story to share.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't share it, Candy, because they don't believe it for themselves. They believe it for everybody else, but they don't believe it for them.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for being a guest on my show, talking about this topic. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being an amazing guest. I mean, an amazing host, Candy. I appreciate that. And ladies and gentlemen, go out there, take action. Don't be scared to let your voice be heard.
Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know, and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.